Welcome back to the channel. Today we are looking at a brand new Vex build that doesn't need crit knife, that is an absolute boss shredder, that gives you unlimited, pretty much unlimited damage, unlimited shield, unlimited amp, unlimited ammo. Technically we'll get into that. The build is absolutely phenomenal. If you don't like crit knife, or crit knife is 100% going to be nerfed soon, this will be the build for you. However, there is a very specific set of gear and loot that you need to farm, so it's a very particular build. And I'm going to talk about probably why you shouldn't use it, but we'll get into why in a second. So there are two things at play with this build. First and foremost, witchy trigger finger. This is what we are built around in general. So dealing damage with Eldritch Blast or Phase Explosion will fully refill ammo of Vex's current guns and grants a stack of witchy trigger finger, increasing gun damage for a duration. So what it says there, refill ammo, it makes it sound like you have unlimited ammo, but what happens is you take it from your reserve count. So as long as you've got high SDUs and you have, like I have here, 1166 in reserve, you will not have a problem with running out of bullets. Like, even if I don't set up fully, you can just see that all the ammo is coming from my reserves. So even just popping this and shooting things will probably kill most bosses, most badasses, just not as fast as you might like it to. The other perk that we are going to utilize is Cursed Blade. So melee attacks apply a curse to hit enemies, making them take kinetic status effect damage anytime they take gun damage. So it's just going to put out extra damage onto the enemy, essentially. That's why I throw in a little knife attack during the setup, because you see this purple thing gathers around the bottom of them. That means the curse is applied, which means they're essentially just going to take more damage. There is also some shock in there, which we'll talk about as well with the gear and loot. And like I said, the gear and loot is very, very specific things that you need to go and collect. It took me a long time to get this built up. There is another Vex build that I am building, which is just generically easier to set up and is probably stronger than this. But if you like a challenge, you like something a little bit different, a little bit unique, this will be for you. So let's just clear out the blue skill tree because there's not many points in here. So we've got Cold Iron for increased gun damage, which, you know, is just great for everyone. We have the Cursed Blade, 5 points into it. So you get an extra curse damage of 446 on top of all the bullets that you're spraying and spraying and spraying. And then we have extra curse. So curse damage now triggers on minion melee damage and deals increased damage when it's triggered by a critical hit. So that first part with the minion doesn't matter because that's for the Reapers. But that second part there did increase damage when it's triggered by a critical hit. There are things in here that are going to help you get crits easier, which means you're going to do double the curse damage on every single time you get a crit. So using the Incarnate action skill, you can see that just further down into the little paragraph, it says dealing gun damage reduces Eldritch Blast's cooldown. So we are hitting the enemy essentially to build the cooldown of the blast up. We throw the blast out, which refills our ammo. So we are just constantly in tandem there. We're shooting, we're shooting, we're shooting. We're constantly throwing out Eldritch Blasts, and it just works together really nicely. That is what we are doing essentially. So we have Leeching Attunement. So while Vex is attuned to kinetic, she gains lifesteal. Lifesteal is very important for keeping your overshield up and your shield at full, so you just basically don't die unless you get hit by a psycho from behind. So that's what we do with that. Then we go down to Fiendish Invigoration. So when you use a rep kit, she and minions gain increased movement speed and fire rate for a duration. Fire rate is very important for this build because obviously you're firing bullets faster. Then we go down to Material Components, increased kinetic damage and status effect damage. Self-explanatory. And then we go to here for that perk that will give you better critical hit chance against any part of an enemy, so you don't have to hit them in the head, which will then obviously equate with the cursed stuff as well on the blue tree. So definitely worth picking up. We go down here to the right for Grey Vitality. Not really that important, but you get more health essentially. Then we go down to Essence Leech. So Vex gains lifesteal, but that is doubled when your action skill is active, and that helps with Blood is Power, and that grants you bonus kinetic damage with guns based on her current lifesteal when her health is full. Her health is essentially going to be full all the time because we're going to have constant overshield, which means then you're going to get bonus kinetic damage based on the amount of lifesteal you have, which is quite a lot because we got it all built into this tree. But on top of that as well, we have it on some of the gear. So Drink Full, whenever Vex deals gun damage, she gains a stack of Drink Full, increasing her fire rate, again pushing that fire rate through the roof. And then we have the Witchy Trigger Finger. So essentially we're improving our fire rate, which fires more bullets, which brings your Eldritch Blast back quicker. We throw out the Eldritch Blast, which means you get your ammo refilled, so you can just constantly shoot, and all damage is just buffing up as you are going. It's pretty goddamn incredible. So for specializations, I have a few extra points because I've leveled up quite a little bit. You essentially need 20 points in Survivor and 20 points in Brutes. I have put extra points into both of these to just increase my gun damage more and increase my maximum health and shields more. So I've got more shields and overshields, which causes me to have more protection, and then on top of that as well, just more damage and stuff. So the perk that we're looking for in the Survivor section is the Best Defense. So gains increased damage dealt based on the fullness of their shield or health, whichever has the maximum capacity. So essentially that's going to be your shield. It's always going to be an overshield. It's always going to be ready to have extra damage dealt. The 20 points in Brute will lead us to CQC. Melee damage grants the Vault Hunter increased fire rate for a duration. We're going to be applying the curse with a melee, so this just works out nicely. Then we go down to Riddle You This, which gives you more gun damage the more gun damage you do. Then we want 10 points in Sharpshooter and 10 points in Runner to get 1 point into Daredevil, which will lead us to now with Caffeine. So reduce action skill cooldown whenever a rep is activated, a rep kit is activated. So if for any reason you need your action cooldown back, you're going to be popping your rep kit quite often. Now, I've started to go into the killer tree, not for any specific perks, but it gives you better critical hit damage and status effect damage. So critical hit damage we're going to need with this build. Well, we don't even need it, but, you know, it's just a nice little bonus. So all the next points that I get, hopefully the next 10 points will all go into killer to build up my critical hit chance. So pretty goddamn sick. Let's look at the gear. So first and foremost, the weapon that I am using is the Whiskey Foxtrot. So it's a Ripper licensed magazine, which makes it fire faster in general. You charge it up and it fires like crazy. This is the only gun you really need for boss damage and stuff, but it can work with Lucian's Flank, which I like as well, but you need to have the like extra barrel for increased fire rate. It's a little bit finicky to like switch over to it, change to all fire mode, blah, 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 blah. Burt's Bees also works really nice, but you need to have something that gives you extra SMG ammo in a clip, which you're limited by the gear we're going to look for, but it does work with the Burt's Bees. I always put on a 7th Sense just to be able to take out adds and normal enemies because it is super powerful. Kinetic damage is really good on this build. 7th Sense is one of the best pistols in the game, one of the best guns in the game, so you could just do insane damage. You can also use the Hot Slugger. That's also a good choice as well for add clear up and just general killing of enemies. So those are the kind of weapons that I go for, but the Whiskey Foxtrot is by far the best. Then this is where it gets a bit crazy. So you don't need a specific grenade. I just threw on the Atomic Jelly. I never use it. It just that I had Rubber Band Man on, which is one of the firmwares we need. That's why I threw it on. Saves me having to create a grenade. But any grenade you want in the world, you can use here. You can even use the Crit Knife as well, which would make this even more ridiculous. But obviously Crit Knife will get changed and nerfed at some point. So pick a grenade. Slippy is another choice that I thought about doing because it is melee damage on detonation, but if you're close to an enemy, this thing's going to kill you, so it's not really worth it. So anything you want. Waterfall's pretty good as well if you get the right roll. Right, then we have the bane of my existence, the shiny war paint. This is an incredible rep kit for this build. However, the drop rate on this shiny war paint in general is absolutely disgustingly low, and on top of that, to get enrage on it is even lower, which you need essentially. So Chrome on use grants 30% fire rate and 30% movement speed for 15 seconds, and it reduces the rep kit cooldown by 2 seconds each time damage is taken. So you can see that I have a 50-second cooldown. If I take 25 ticks of damage during those 15 seconds, I get my rep kit back. Regardless, even if I don't get it all the way back, when I'm ready to fight another boss, or when I am fighting a boss, sorry, I'm going to pretty much drain their health before I ever need to use a rep kit again. So this is purely for your damage because you will never need to heal unless you're very, very unlucky and get hit with something very, very specific. So shiny war paint, absolutely incredible. I made a video yesterday on my channel about the best rep kit and where to get it and the little farming method exploit that you could use to get it. Go check it out. I'll link it down below if I can remember to do that. Next up, we have the Shielded Team Witch, which is absolutely needed for this build. It is generally ridiculously good for any Vex build because when Vex has maximum health, her lifesteal partially applies to shields. When Vex has maximum shield, her lifesteal partially grants overshield. So what you are going to be doing basically is every time you hit an enemy, you're going to have lifesteal, which is going to fill your shield up and then fill it up with overshield. You are going to be doing so much damage so quick, so often with any build, let alone this build, that you will always have overshield. It's insane. I've got plus 40% kinetic damage on mine and plus 10% lifesteal. So the kinetic damage obviously just helps with everything, but any kind of gun damage will be applicable here. I got really lucky with a kinetic damage drop, and that lifesteal adds to lifesteal. And there are some other perks which we'll go have a look at in a second, and why it even makes this even better, those red perks. It's insane. Then we have the What's for Dinner energy shield. So this is a very specific build as well, because you need to find it with amp, and you only get it from the Vault Guardian Origo. So it's a bit of a farm for this as well. But if you get amp, when energy shields are full, shots drain 28% of those shields for 100% gun damage. You're going to be improving your damage overall, but you'll never be low on shield, because as soon as it takes that chunk off, your lifesteal is pushing it all the way back up. So you will be constantly in amp, you'll be constantly dealing extra damage and just keeping yourself safe and protected. However, What's for Dinner also has another perk which is really good. So whenever energy shield is active, enemies have a 12% chance to drop an overshield when hit, so you can pick them up and get your overshield back. When overshield is also active, grants 25% shock damage. So all the damage you're already doing, you'll be doing an extra 25% of shock damage on top of that, because you're full on shield, you're full on overshield, which improves your damage, which improves your fire rate, which improves pretty much everything. So you will be absolutely obliterating with this. So that is a very specific drop that you need to get. This is also a very specific drop you need to get. So what you also need, because obviously Foxtrot is a Vladoff weapon, you know, there are some other Vladoff weapons you could use. You need the enhancement for Vladoff. If you can get the legendary version like I have here with bullet hose and box magazine, you are going to be laughing. But you lose one of the extra perks because you obviously got two unique Vladoff enhancement perks. But I got very lucky in having gun damage and gun critical damage that came from my pal DPJ, who found it randomly. So I was very, very lucky with those two specific roles, because then I can have both box magazine and bullet hose and not worry too much about it. However, all you really need is box magazine and damage perks, because guns with Vladoff licensed parts gain 20% fire rate and 20% magazine size. That magazine size is very important, but also that fire rate is great as well. So those extra skills that we get off the class mod give us Blood is Magic, so deal increased action skill damage to higher health. Not really that important, but you know, your health's going to be full, so every time you throw out an Eldritch Blast, it's going to do slightly more damage, not a lot. And then we have 2 points in Corporeal, I believe that's how you pronounce it. Vex and minions gain increased maximum overshield capacity and overshield duration. So just tying in nicely to all the overshield stuff that we have. And then we also get 3 points in Grave First. So Vex and minions gain lifesteal for a duration, and lifesteal makes everything work in this build. Insane, incredible. And let's just go back and have a look at the firmware. So Deadeye is pretty much necessary for most Vex builds, because you get the gun critical damage increased by 25%, and critical hit grants 15% critical damage per stack for 5 stacks for 10 seconds. So you're just going to be doing pure criticals and stuff with this. So it's just increased damage. But then we also have 2 firmwares for Rubber Band Man. So damage reduction is increased by -5%. The way they word that sounds so weird. Basically, you're going to have an extra 5% damage reduction, I believe. I don't know. But that second one is the most important one. The lifesteal is increased by 5%. That's extra lifesteal attached to your build, giving you more of everything we've spoken about. So I know what you're thinking. Why did I say don't use this build? Now, on PC, this build's going to absolutely be incredible for 2 reasons. One, you can control the recoil of the gun easier because the Ripper one is insane. And 2, throwing out that Eldritch Blast over and over and over again is absolutely insanely difficult on a controller, unless you just got some freakishly incredible fingers, dexterous fingers. Because you have to hold the right trigger. Where's the little finger? You have to hold the right trigger and then also tap left bumper. You lose the ability to move around and dodge and stuff. So you kind of just have to stand there and hope that in the first time you unleash bullet hell all over the boss, they die. And that's because you are pretty much limited in your movement while you are applying the constant Eldritch Blasts. So if you want to actually have this constantly going, you pretty much have to stand still and hope for the best. If you try and move, or if an enemy knocks you across the map, which can happen. I tried this on Radix, and Radix was absolutely just beating me all over the place, and I had to basically activate my action skill at least twice to finish him off. So I did like half his health, ran around dodging all his stuff until my action skill come back, and then I went at him again. So it is a very specific particular build, which I think is let down by the fact that it's hard to use on console or with a controller on PC. With a mouse, you can control the recoil a lot easier, which means, you know, you can turn and look and move insanely easier than on a controller. But when you do get to a boss, there are specific bosses this is going to be absolutely unbelievable at, but there are other bosses where it makes it very, very hard to use. You can still pretty much kill the boss easily without having to worry about anything, but we need to apply the curse, and the melee system isn't that great in this game, so doing something like the worm thresher is not fun because anything can happen like this. I am now stuck because I couldn't get my lifesteal off because my shield wasn't full. I didn't have the chance to get set up. So if you can get set up, very, very good, incredible build. Now we're set up, but I haven't got my action skill, so you know, my gun still does insane damage. Don't get me wrong, it's not going to take me too long to kill him, but I've made this build and it's not working that great for specific bosses. So if I don't bother meleeing him, where I don't take any damage, straightforward, easy. So the curse part of it doesn't really matter that much on specific bosses. You can just run in, pop your action skill, throw everything you need to throw at him and all the bullets, and he's fine. However, other bosses will be unbelievable because they typically just stand there and let you hit them. So, right, so we're here at my boy Fractus, who I'm not going to be able to melee, but he's a bit more of a sit still kind of boss. So I wanted to showcase, you know, what you can do with it, because he grows a little bit bigger when he's in the sky. So this is me going through his shield as well. You know, I'm not even worried about it. So you can see that even without the melee, on a more still boss, it's unbelievable. And that's the video. One of the most fun, intricate builds I've seen for VEX. Has the potential to be absolutely unbelievable, but it has too many limits, in my opinion, to utilize it effectively, especially on console. You know, if you can get the melee off and it's on an enemy that doesn't rush around too much, you are going to be absolutely fine. You're going to blast through everything. But I think it's definitely worth a build. See how you feel about it, especially if you're using mouse and keyboard, because it's going to be a little bit easier to perform all the actions. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. I have another VEX build coming out very, very soon, which is generically just insanely good and easy to use. So look out for that. Thank you for watching. I've been easy now. You guys have been awesome.